His remarkable ability to hold humor, pain, and humanity in the same sentence, Jerry Pinto. Jerry will be in conversation with someone who I hope forgives me very soon. An award-winning journalist who changed the way news is anchored in India. She brings clarity and much needed sanity, replacing outrage with insight and opinion with truth. A fearless trailblazer and the youngest woman to helm a national news channel, she uses journalism to do what it should, make the world better. The inevitable is the There will be a short 5-minute Q&A at the end of the session, so keep your questions handy. Over to you, Faye and Jerry.
This is a deeply moving book. I'm so grateful to you for asking me to chair this session and not all about current affairs. Specifically, and I don't know if this is a coincidence, but I lost my dad 5 months ago. My dad, who was the soil to my roots and the sky to my branches. And for 5 months before he passed, I stood next to him in a hospital and watched him wither away. And so much of what is in this book spoke to me because I experienced it firsthand. All of it, the communication or the lack of it, the ICUs and the beeping and the fluorescent white lights of the hospital that finally winds up confusing not just the sick and the ailing person, but the entire family. And it's such a powerful book that before we start, and I was sitting through the previous session with the former Chief Justice, Mr. Shashi Tharoor. So I know that one was about intellect and thinking. I want you to key into your feelings for this one. This is less about intellect and thinking. This is more about feeling and tapping into that part of us that instinctively knows the difference between right and wrong as human beings. That's what this book is about. That's what palliative care is about, and that's why it's so beautiful. So having said that, we have volunteers in the room. If your phone rings, they will beat you with a book. Soha and Jim did such a beautiful job of introducing us to the tone of the book. I just want to read one small paragraph that introduces us to the idea of palliative care. What is palliative care? It is an inclusive approach to medical care for any serious illness at any age, right from the moment of diagnosis. Care that helps you to be as pain-free as possible, allowing you to find joy and peace amidst your journey. Care that keeps you and your family at heart. A true partnership between medical professionals, yourself, and yourself, which accompanies you in your most difficult times. Jerry, first of all, thank you so much for this book. It's healing, and it healed me, I think, in some ways. But I want to understand from you, why did you write this book about palliative care?
Actually, I have to say that it wasn't my idea at all. It began with the death of Nelly Gobhai, my friend, the painter. And he was a wonderful man. And he left 1/4 of his entire estate to children's charities, because he knew that I was very invested in children while not having any of my own. So he said, I began to ask people what I should do, and my friend Naresh Fernandez said, go and check out the Wadia Hospital, the Jarbai Wadia Hospital for children. They have, they have a palliative care unit, and I went there. And one of the first things that happened was a morning that completely changed my life. I mean, in some ways, it softened and deepened things inside me, because it was a workshop on how to wash a dead baby. It was conducted with such dignity and grace And this dignity and grace was being offered to someone who was dead, a child that was dead. It was so beautiful and so moving. I felt that there might be, I might want in some ways to know more about this. And then when I met Dr. Veronique Dinon, she said, I would really like money to fund a toy and book librarian to walk around my hospital and read stories to children. And I thought, my heart is breaking. Because this is just, if you think about it for a moment, right? You're a kid in bed. You're locked there. Perhaps your leg is broken. Perhaps you've just been staring at the ceiling all day. No one has thought about what is happening behind your face. Because they're all looking at what is happening in your bones. What is happening in your mind? That wonderful, bright, active mind of the child. How is it being engaged? And if you engage that mind, if you keep that child happy, laughing, thinking, perhaps the healing will be speeded up. Perhaps we have a happier ward. Perhaps there'll be fun for a moment in the life of a child who's locked in bed. Palliative care children want to go and sit for exams. That's what they want. They want to be normal. They want to have the pressures that other children are experiencing. They want to go back to the things that terrorize them, exams, because that's normalcy. To fund that, I had that moment when I could say, we can do this. We can make a kid happy. How much better does it get than that? And so we paid for this librarian, this comic book librarian, and I walked with him around the walls. And I saw joy. That he walked into the cancer ward and he's treated like a rock star. Asoba! They shout. Okay. Yay! They shout. And this made me sure that there was something being done here that was so right. And then I remembered that Romana Hamid, whom I met, I think, at Tash and Meenakshi's party, had actually asked one of my students to do a book on palliative care. For one reason or the other, it had not worked. So I met her at that party and I said, are you still interested in a book on palliative care? And she said, yes. And I said, I'll do it. And then on the way home, I thought, I don't know anything about palliative care. But the great thing about being a journalist, Faye, you'll know this. We don't have to know. We just have to be humble and find out. And in the spirit of humility, I started talking to people, Dr. Armida Fernandez, who is here, Dr. Marianne Mukadar, women who just completely changed the way you think about how care needs to be given. It was just such a joy.
He really doesn't hate me, but since I'm here. You traveled across the country meeting with people who, you met with families, you met with patients, you met with doctors, but you met with palliative caregivers. Are there stories, and I know there are hundreds, but stories that come to mind right now that you could share of extraordinary people doing extraordinary work?
I want to tell you this story actually. That chair. I want to tell you this story. It was like the one that began, and I actually wanted like someone to make a film of it. Because it's this wild story, right? It starts with a matriarch. She has 4 sons. All 4 sons have a neurological disease. Okay, they're just, obviously, they're shaking, shivering, whipping their heads around, bumping their heads on the wall behind them, and she's trying her best to care for them, but she's getting old, she's got a back problem, because of her back problem, she's got a urinary problem, she's got infections, so she holds a meeting, and she says to them, it's time to decide whether we should live or die. Let's vote. She's Malayali. They're democratic. vote for death, but there's one holdout. He says, no, I want to live. And she says, if there's one holdout, we will all live, however we can manage. These boys have been sitting up against a wall, okay? The wall is behind them, and they're thumping themselves on the wall, and the backs of their heads are bruised and bleeding. The first act of palliative care, so simple. Dr. Rajagopal got a mattress and put it behind them, and their heads healed. A simple act of care. One mattress. 3 people eased. To me, this, then when we went to visit them, almost everyone was gone. There was just one, the young man who voted for life. He was there in that room. And the palliative care team walked in. The driver of the vehicle got out and repaired the fan. Because if you're living in Kerala, a fan in the afternoon is the difference between a siesta and not sleeping at all. So someone repaired that fan. A neighbor turned up, Hussain Saab. Hussain Saab on his phone had every detail about this boy's condition and was telling the doctors about it. Everybody in that community was involved. Everybody was working to make sure this young man was, and they had all asked. The doctors had said, let's take these people to a home. And they said, no. We want to stay here. And because patient autonomy is important, they were allowed to stay there. And it was made possible for them to stay there. And I came out of that small pokey house into the glory of a Kerala afternoon. Green and gold with water dripping, frogs in the well, the smell of petrichor in your nostrils. And I thought, this is real work. One mattress, one fan, one small adjustment at a time can make the world better. Such a great moment.
Back to me again. So in that little family, which you said was democratic, unlike the rest of us, the minority vote won. Unlike the Supreme Court. The thing I remember quite clearly when my dad was unwell was he was a person whose organs were failing one after the other. We had a different doctor for every organ who were not talking to each other. Right? And as his caregiver, I would have to make myself available every day from a certain point of time to a certain point of time, because these different organ doctors would show up on their rounds and give us different instructions. And you needed some patient advocacy to say, no, but the doctor in charge of kidneys has said this. And then they would. And when I finally, reached a point where I realized none of this was working, I called Dr. Rajagopal. I had the information. I knew what palliative care was, but I still could not fight the system because of the way the doctors would constantly recommend procedures that each of them knew they could do, but not necessarily procedures that the patient could withstand. I mean, just because you can do a procedure doesn't mean you should. And then Dr. Rajagopal said, stop describing organs to me. Tell me about the person. What is he doing? And here I needed somebody else to remind me to talk about the person I love most in the world as a human being. Because even as a family member, I started describing organs and data and blood pressure and test reports. And you've said in your book very beautifully that communication, the beginning and the end of palliative care is communication. And that the medical fraternity needs to be a partner. Is it prepared to be a partner?
Everyone said, thoughtfully. We all had that moment with the doctor. We are also to blame. It's is not just doctor. You mind if I get it?
No, please, I thought I would have you shoot off as soon as I
I just feel constrained by that. You know, fundamentally, okay, if there is the collusion thing that Vijay read about, which is people not telling, ask yourself one simple question. Would you like to be told? Would you like to be told? Yes. Yes or no?
Yes.
You would like to be told, no doubt, with gentleness, with kindness, with information, in the right setting. But most of all, you want to know. And yet we think that we will protect someone by not telling them. How is that protection? How? And there was one story that I was told about this man who when he got his diagnosis, he had 6 weeks left, and he was so angry with his family. He said, I don't want to meet anyone from my family for the next 2 weeks until I settle everything. Then I'll meet them. And he called his lawyers, and he called his accountants, and he called up his sister whom he had not spoken to for 30 years, and he apologized to her, and they wept over the phone. And when all that was done, he said, okay, now those idiots can come back. Because he still loved those idiots. Okay? So that's one of those like fundamental questions. And that is at the bottom empathy. How would you like to be treated? Treat people the way you would like to be treated. If you want to know, then tell. You don't have to slap them in the face of the night. But tell. Because people, even the weakest of us, have hidden reserves of strength and would like to be made strong and seen as strong. Because if you say to someone, you are strong, that person feels stronger. But if you say to that person, you're weak and you can't take this knowledge, that person feels weaker. Right? So for me, one of the things that I think happens with doctors and patients is that, as Shaw put it, George Bernard Shaw put it, we have made doctors, with all due apologies to the doctors here, Dr. Armida, Dr. Kudiba, we have made them into the new priests. We go with our confessions. Doctor, I've been smoking and not sleeping too much, and, I have stress life, and then there are pork chops, doctor. Like, what can you do in the face of a pork chop? Things like that. Things that people say to doctors, it is kind of like and the doctor, again and again, feels like that I will help. Come to me, all 100 passes. I will refuse you visas. So, one of the things to do, I think, is to recognize that on that side of the table, behind the stethoscope, and behind the white coat is a flawed human being who might even be concealing a drug problem from you. You don't know. They have access. They can write their own prescriptions. How does it get cooler than that? So I'm saying, suppose we look at doctors as buddies. We walk in and say, hey doc, how are you doing? I think I'm ill. Okay, and work hard at suppressing your desire to impress your doctor. Because that's the other. No doctor, I do. I sleep 9 hours a day minimum. And I work out 6 days a week minimum. You don't, you so don't. You see, 4 hours, you're on your phone for the rest of the time. That's the thing. I think we all kind of made an effort, a strenuous effort. Okay, here's the thing. You're so important. Because nature made that one you and then broke the mold. Never again is there going to be anything so wonderful as you. And that's human rights at its fundamental basis. The you-ness of you is the most important thing, and that means no doctor, no super specialist who gives you an appointment when you have cancer 3 in the morning. How is he staying awake? Okay. Anyway, that doctor and you have the same value in the world, if we could accept this, that there is no human being more important than the other, if we could accept this somewhere deep down, see like a complete change, not just in your health, but in the way you deal with the world. The world. That's the secret. So simple. That you were told so long ago that your body, your thumbprint, your DNA, your blood, all these shared by everyone in humanity, that same outline is shared, but you're still special. You hang on to that. You walk into the doctor's room thinking, I'm the expert on my body as much as you, because I've lived inside here. You've not. But I want to know what you think also.
Is that this rock star room where you're all laughing and clapping, and we're talking about death, a subject matter that as Indians we particularly avoid discussing unless we absolutely have to. Although I do recommend that while there is a toy and book librarian in the children's ward, maybe a pork chop and Vindaloo librarian.
You have to make a vegetarian one. Okay, just because the two of us are here on stage. Yeah, but you know, when you read about this, I read a lovely piece about this person in St. Christopher's Hospice. She is an old lady who runs the alcohol trolley. She wheels it around the hospice saying, anyone care for a gin and tonic, darling? As far as joy goes, doesn't get better than this. But of course we have but I would say that person, these people are going. You're going to worry about that, getting addicted. Yeah, sure. But on the other hand, what I'm saying is, okay, here's the thing. You think you're not involved, right? That's where the problem also lies. In your building, there is an ill person. How about you go visit? How about you just drop in and say, hey, if anyone needs to take a break, I'll sit for half an hour. I'll sit for an hour or two. You go see a film and come back. Yeah? Because when something bad happens, people say, tell me what I can do. And the bereaved person or the ill person can't think, but you can say, hey, I know you must be doing 20 different things right now. How about I take over, bringing one dal sabzi every second day. I'll bring a dal sabzi every second and then do it. You can swing. Probably get better dal sabzi also, your dal sabzi also possibly. So, but make sure you follow through. That is really palliative care when everybody feels important. That because today, if there's no illness in my family, that doesn't mean that it's not happening tomorrow. Right? And we can all be involved. And in some ways, throughout these little lifelines, say something. Even if you can't cook or whatever, you can go and sit with that person and please don't say, how are you feeling? Because they're feeling like shit. But you can just be there for them. Yeah? And kindness is so vital. It's such a force. And we do not actively just decide to be kind. Just to be kind. For a little while. So much is helped. Okay?
I was going to say, don't sit down, but okay. So, I do hope that all of you will read the book. For those of us who are on the correct side of 40, the font is very helpfully large. You did talk about what you want all of us to do, which is kindness, which will really get sparked from this book. But it's also, you've also talked here about caregivers, family members, who spend their days working, earning, cleaning the house and caring, and how palliative care also includes caregivers.
And really it's about women, yeah. Most of the time it's about women. It's about, like, I mean, when someone falls ill and the daughter-in-law of the house, the daughter, the sister, the mother, it's just put on her plate as one more thing that she has to do. और तू बनाएगी ना diabetic खाना उसके लिए, हाँ, separate खाना उसके लिए. She has to not only figure out like her timing, she has to figure out the pots and pans, she has to figure out the time required, she has to figure out the economy of the thing, where she going to get all this stuff. All that is her job, right? And the job, when it is done well, it vanishes, because everyone comes and visits and the patient is lying there and the bed sheets are clean and the room is smelling fresh and everything's great. And then they say, they don't even actually most of the time say she's doing a good job. But they come in and one thing is missing. Like, you know, the sunflower was like withered. Like she had a sunflower and it was withered. I was thinking of Franco, you know, dying sunflower. Like, how sad that a poor sick person has to tolerate that dying sunflower. Give over, do, right? Okay. So I think when people are in the and caregiving is kind of everybody's job, but it is women's job most of the time, because the kids first want caregiving, the old people caregiving, the animals caregiving. Like, they will con you into having a dog, but then you will clean up after them. They are not doing the dog thing, or taking the dog for a walk. I got exams, yeah. I like to take the dog, you take the dog. That's like stuff. So it's always the women who have to do it, and then they are made guilty when they feel burnout. Because there's a moment when you want to say, you say inside your head, perhaps, I don't you just die. Yeah. And you don't mean it, and you mean it at the same time. It's horrible, because then you hurt yourself with the guilt. You hurt yourself with condemnation, with self-condemnation. How could I even think that? You could think that because you have been worn out by the stress of it. If you thought it ever, I know I thought it about my mother. Forgive yourself. Let it go. It was a thought. We are human. We think things. We can let them go, we can forgive ourselves, because we are also human. Forgive yourself. Let it go. And understand that part of it is because we need to be able to reach out and say, help me. And then we need to be able to say concretely, this is how you can help. Because most of the time, if you tell a man, help me, he says, I'll write a check. If you're lucky with your friends. Because that's the easy thing to do. Write the check and finish it. But don't ask me for time and attention and silence and stuff like that. If you have women friends, you're probably luckier. They're likely to show up for you. But they've probably got their own stuff going on as well. Right? It's just very complicated. We are all busy. I understand that. And caregiver burnout is normal. It's natural. It's part of being human. And if we didn't feel it, it would be because we don't care enough. Because when you care, you're vulnerable and everything is an abrasion. So someone, like, I mean, you're tucking some, the bed sheets in, and the person who's in says, can't you do it gently? And you think, I need to do it as gently as I can. But then you say, deep breath, I'll try, and you do it, but there's rage inside you. And that rage makes you so sad that you could feel rage about this person. It's so complicated. We need those support groups. We need people to know that they're not alone.
What I learned about help and asking for help is that in that burnout moment where you actually call someone out of desperation, the person you call almost always takes it as a compliment. Like, you thought of me. I'm so happy you thought of me. I'm so happy you're going to give me a chance to help. And I think that we forget that in our own desperation. that there are people who will help. We just have to remember to ask. Questions? Can we take questions from the audience?
The thing is, ask me anything, say anything you want, don't worry about it. No one will judge you, no one will remember. People are now already planning dinner. This is Bombay audience, so people are saying 43 and very local, this or that. Ask anything you feel like, feel free. If you want to ask me a question, please feel free as well. Romana's here, if you'd like to ask her a question, you can feel free. Mr. Hamid is here, he'll answer questions in his own completely delightful way. What intraocular devices cost? So I said, no sir, I don't know. He said, 1.5 lakh per year. I want to bring 2 devices and break them and see what's inside them. Can't you make them cheaper? And I thought, I love you. I absolutely love you. Someone who just wants to, who's actually thinking there, that, let's go make these things cheaper. That's my kind of guy. And that was the joy of working on this book as well. The first time I heard him, after that I said, I went up and I hugged him because of that, and he said, what is this theatrical stuff? I said, okay, I said, but that's me. Chal,
Okay, raise your hand. You're running out of time, so you'll do this way.
Yeah.
Over there.
Yeah, ask.
I don't know. NCPM. Anyway, just thank you for this book, Jerry. Thank you so much. And just back to you because this is really important.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes. I heard a brief in the introduction to the book earlier. So there is a sentence where you said pain, you don't have an option, but suffering is a choice. So I just...
Okay. Pain is actually evolutionarily decided it's your best friend. Okay? If you don't feel pain, what happens is, for instance, you can walk on an ankle that is broken and keep on walking on it until that broken ankle becomes cancer of the bone, and then pain comes roaring back suddenly. There are people who are born without the ability to feel pain. So, little boys who have been made to jump from the 3rd floor just to demonstrate that they are pain-free. That poor boy eventually jumped and died. Right? So pain is there as a way to help you understand. It's your body talking to you. So pain is inevitable, because if it were not inevitable, we would be in trouble. But suffering is not inevitable. You may feel physical pain, but if someone is there to understand it, to help you with it, to say, it is all right, I've been there before, to say, let me understand what you are feeling, to say, can I take the children to school on your behalf, to say, let's try fentanyl, or let's try some other kind of drug if this isn't working. If there is someone to do that, then suffering is not inevitable. But suffering often happens because as a society, we lack empathy. And especially, we lack empathy for the ill. Susan Sontag says beautifully in Elisa's metaphor, we all have 2 citizenships. One is in the citizenship of the land of the healthy. One is in the citizenship of the land of the ill. And you can move from one to the other. I saw an Instagram reel on when a gentleman said, who was physically challenged, he said, we are a nation of disability, and you can get citizenship on one bad bike ride. One bad motorbike ride and you can join our ranks. So I think pain is not just inevitable, pain is a friend. Leprosy afflicted patients sometimes burn because the nerves are no longer sending messages to the brain. So you can't move your leg out of the fire. So pain is inevitable because it's good for you. But suffering doesn't have to be inevitable. Suffering is a human choice that we can all do something about. Yeah?
We have completely run out of time. Jerry, thank you so
I
much.
normally end sessions by saying, go and buy the book. I'm not saying that this time. This book is super special. If you need it, it will happen to you. It will come your way. If you don't, there is no need to buy it. I'm saying you should buy it. I believe you should buy it, and I'm not encouraging it. I'm not doing my normal roadshow. I'm saying this book is really special to me. You go buy it if you're going to read it. And then when you've read it, let me know. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being part of such a vital conversation, our audience, Jerry and Kay. May we leave tonight holding space for tenderness in our relationships and in our care. Jerry will be available to sign books outside at the
Without
foyer
you, it would not
of the
have been
Tata
possible.
Center. As I said, Jerry will be available to sign books outside the foyer, available at the stall. So please buy his books and you can get him to sign the books. We encourage you to please return your literature lover plastic covers and badges so that we can reuse them and reduce our carbon footprint. We encourage you of your literature lover badges so that we can reuse them for other participants to reduce our carbon footprint. Thank you so much for understanding. You can catch a performance by Emma Tabasi called And Here I Am today at 8 p.m. at Godrej Theatre and tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Huge thank you to our ISL interpreters from Access Pro for making our sessions inclusive. Literature Live by LitFest 2025 is presented by Godrej Industries in association with the NCPA, barred by Florentine. Happy reading, and the next session here will be as soon as we can start it. Thank you so much. Jerry will be available to meet in the foyer at the Tata Theatre. If one would like to meet him, please